Welcome everybody. I'm Monika Schlitzer. I'm the publisher of DK Verlag in Germany, and I'm over the moon that we can have Yotam and Ixta here today with us from their test kitchen in London. Welcome. So great to see you.
Hello.
Yeah, it would be much nicer if we were in the same room, but well, nobody had to travel, so that's good too. It's easy to just set up this connection and have everybody with us here tonight. So thank you for the great books you gave us. Thank you especially for Flavour. And this is why we are meeting tonight. And I just heard from our sales director, Barbara, who says hello, that the sell-through of Flavour in this week is number 19 of all German books on sale in sell.
Wow.
Including fiction and everything. I mean, number 19 of all German books. Isn't that unbelievable?
Makes us very happy.
Yeah,
and us too. So it's going from strength to strength, and I'm really happy that many people can now learn what flavor is all about, how you create flavor, and that there are a few different ways that haven't been in your previous books. You're known for your vegetarian recipes, and 10 years ago, when Plenty, Genussvoll Vegetarisch in German, was first published, and it just hit the button when everybody got interested in vegetarian cuisine, but you're not just a vegetarian chef. You opened our palates and our senses to a completely new world of spices, and I think that's one of the secrets of your success here.
Thank you, Monika. It's a pleasure. I mean, I would have rather been there in person, but it's nice to have that introduction from you and all the people who've just joined us live and watching us. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we're all looking at so many changes in our lives. And my first question to you was, how did the lockdown this year change the way you personally cook and eat, you and Ixta, the two of you?
Well, I think like many other people, I was stuck at home for many months at the beginning of the year. And I was with my husband, Carl, and our 2 young children. And I think one thing that we all had to do was produce 3 meals a day. There was just no other way, you know, there was nowhere to go. Plus we needed to do something, right? So everybody cooked. So I found myself cooking more than ever. But especially children-friendly meals, which was essential to keep them occupied, and we got them involved in the cooking, especially making cakes and things that they were, you know, they love doing that. And I found myself cooking, really kind of maximizing the use of ingredients. So that the idea that you can't just go out and shop, that procuring the ingredients was more complicated than usual, made it that you were much more aware of what you're doing and not wasting and not kind of working kind of frivolously. So lots of kind of bread puddings and fritters and things that recycle ingredients, recycle in the best possible way. Yeah. And we were getting veg boxes, so often things out of the veg box, which can be really a challenge, but it can also be wonderfully creative. That's been really useful. And I found myself, I mean, one of the things that I made a lot of is bakes, rice bakes, pasta bakes, things that come out of the oven and just like the whole family can get around. That was really cool.
I'm so sorry, I keep on going off because I think I inhaled some chili and it's stuck in my throat. So I'm sorry if I keep on walking away, it's because I'm coughing.
Yeah, and the chili you prepared to show us how you do your flavor bombs, right?
Okay, Ixta. So first of all, I feel like I need to introduce Ixta because she is instrumental to this book, obviously, as the co-author of Flavour. And Ixta has spent her life in various parts of the world, and she has Brazilian heritage and Mexican heritage, and she spent time in Italy. This is why there's so many Latin influences in the book, and we can maybe talk about that in a minute, but we've got here this plate of wonder, and I'm trying not to inhale the chili. So we've got different types of dried chilies, fresh chilies. We've got ginger, garlic and ginger, and some star anise. So we're making a numbing oil, like a chili infused oil, which is tries to kind of be like what you get in Chinese restaurants. That's chili oil, and we use it in the book in a recipe for cabbage with cream cheese. It all sounds very unusual, but we're going to try to make that and show you through the process. But since we decided to not show you the process because it's too complicated to bring the phone up and down, so we'll just start by making this, and then we'll show you it as it goes along. I'm just going to tell you here that Ixta is going to is warming up some oil, and starting to cook the ingredients that I've just shown you. So the ginger, the garlic, the shallots, and the two types of chili, and there's some salt and star anise there.
Yeah. Are you heating the oil up very hot, or are you heating it up at moderate heat?
No, so it's all kind of on a medium high heat, and we put all the ingredients in together with the oils, because actually we don't want the oil or the pan to be too hot. We want it, if it was too hot, then it would burn the ingredients and make them very crispy. And what we want is for them to sort of slowly cook. So we're gonna fry these for about until they get really nice and soft. And then we're going to add more ingredients, sesame seeds, tomato paste, and more oil. And then we're going to let that bubble away until we get a really beautiful red oil.
So I'll just show it at this stage.
Yes.
With that kind of paste that you can see.
Yeah.
And we're going to start to slowly cook that down. And it's a good opportunity to talk a little bit about the book, because we do a lot of, this is from a section at the end of the book, which we call the flavor bombs, which is where Monika, excuse the train, we're just
yes, well, it feels like we are on location with you, don't
So this book is all about flavor, as it says on the cover, and there's a section that we really love at the end of the book called the flavor bomb. And essentially this, Ixta will show it in a minute, she's just getting the book. Essentially, here we go.
Yes.
So if you've seen that picture, there's lots of different condiments here.
And these condiments are taken out of different recipes in the book. So on top, as well as cooking a recipe, we always ask you to pay attention to what's in the particular recipe, because essentially often there is a takeout, like something that you can implement in your future cooking. So rather than, and that kind of also somehow relates to lockdown, because one of the things that you want to talk what you did in lockdown.
Yeah, so
making condiments.
Like Yotam was saying before, we've all found ourselves in this crazy situation where we're all at home and having to cook 2, if not 3 meals a day, and sometimes that can get really difficult, and there's a lot of washing up, and it's very time consuming. So this little section at the back that Yotam's been talking about, the flavor bomb section, can really help you, because if you're making a recipe from the book and there's, for example, a recipe for a numbing oil in there, then we would suggest, make double that numbing oil, and then you have a jar of numbing oil in your fridge. So the next time you make some really quick plain rice or some quick noodles, you can put that numbing oil on it, and you've got a really interesting meal, a really vibrant meal, really quickly. So all of these recipes come from other recipes in the book. So every time you make those recipes, you double or triple that marinade, that butter, that oil, and then you can quickly make another meal. For example, still on the theme of chilies, we've got a chili butter, which we use in the book to roast 2 big cauliflower heads in with lots of onion. But you could use it, if you double this chili butter, you could use it to marinate all sorts of vegetables. So you could also use it to marinate a roast chicken. And then, for example, we've got pickled onions, which is the easiest thing to do in the world. And we just pickle red onions with hibiscus and lime. And then if you have a jar of that in your fridge, you add that into just a really simple salad, and you've got a really great salad, just like that.
Yeah. There was a question that I had. Chilies do you use for this particular recipe?
So the chilies, you want to talk about chilies?
Yeah, so this particular recipe, we've got Szechuan pepper, which is technically a pepper, but also has that spice in it. We've got regular chili flakes. We've got fresh red chili. And do we have any other chilies in there? I think that's it.
Yeah.
And then we've also got tomato paste and sesame seeds. But there's both dried and fresh chilies in this.
Yeah. And there's also red pepper flakes. So the red pepper flakes they look like dried chili, but actually they add bulk and color, but they're not hot.
Yeah.
But one of the things we say quite a lot about it in the book is that even if you don't have one particular chili, you can swap them. And so quite a lot of we come up with questions about chilies, because not everybody loves chilies, right? Like some people don't love the heat. And in a way, although we do use quite a lot of chili in this book, it's not necessarily about the heat, because there's so many mild chilies around. And often a recipe in this book is about, containing chili, is about the depth of flavor that chili brings with them, acidity, or the kind of the coffee, chocolatey notes of chili, things that come from the drying of the chilies, but also from the natural flavors of the chilies. And that's something that we kind of emphasize quite a lot. So if you see a chili in the recipe and you don't like heat, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be cooking it. There's other things you can do, and you can take out the seeds, which means you remove the membrane, which makes them super hot. So those are kind of things that you should always keep in mind.
And for example, we've got a recipe in the dessert section that uses chili. So we've got a tangerine and ancho chili flan. And that's sort of a very classic flan recipe, but with the citrus notes of tangerine, and then ancho chili, which brings it doesn't bring spice to the dish. It like very, very mild spice, but it brings sort of smoky, chocolatey notes, and really just makes it a very, very special dessert.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all your desserts look absolutely fantastic. This, for instance, as well. I'll just hold it up. Somebody was asking which book. It's Flavour. This is the book we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I mean, the flavor bombs are really ingenious, because they can add flavor to everything you make. And most of them will fit with all the tastes, all the other tastes that are.
Yeah.
You can just pimp a simple vegetable recipe with that.
That's exactly the right way to describe it.
But you're explaining about I love the flavor bomb approach, because you can have it in your store cupboard and just use it whenever you need a good idea. But you're describing other ways of attaining flavor and making your food flavorful in a way that you haven't done as systematically, at least in your previous books.
Yeah. So in this book in particular, Ixta and I wanted to, when we created the recipes for the book, when we put together the book and chose the recipes, we found it quite difficult to initially to decide how it's going to be divided into chapters, because we realized that there's a lot of wonderful vegetable recipes in the book, but when we divided them, the chapters didn't really make sense, because some of them were about processes that happen in the cooking. Like, we were really fascinated by the flavors that you get from grilling and charring, which is the smokiness and the nice bitterness.
Yeah.
On the one hand, but we also found that like certain recipes were just all about heat, chili heat, peppery heat. And then others were about particular ingredients that are super effective in creating flavor in vegetables, like mushrooms and members of the onion family. So that didn't really make sense. And then we figured out, with the help of our friend Tara Wigley, who's the co-author of Palestine, which is another cookbook.
I met Tara. She's great. Yeah.
Which is another cookbook that you published. And that Tara saw it, and she said, actually, you've got three types of chapters here in the book. You've got chapters that are about process, things that happen in the cooking. you've got about pairing, which is what you pair your vegetable with, acidity, sweetness, fattiness. And then there's recipes that are all about a particular ingredients, like I mentioned, onions or mushrooms. And this is how the sections in the book came out. And we thought it would be really interesting to talk about, like, how do you create a really incredible vegetable dish? What is it how do you make them? So we spent quite a lot of time thinking that, and drawing it out of the recipes and talking about it in the introductions.
Yeah. I mean, do you know what's my favorite recipe in the book? I've cooked quite a few, but there is one that's completely outstanding because it's so simple and the taste is just blew me away. It's the miso butter onions.
I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, that's actually a really funny recipe because a question that we often get is how do we come up with recipes? And actually one of the ways that we come up with recipes is sometimes at the end of the week we open the fridge to see what's left in the fridge because we always clean out the test kitchen at the end of the week. And sometimes we see what we have left over and we make a recipe from that. So the miso butter onions actually came about because at the end of the week we had loads of onions, we had a jar of miso, and we always had butter. And we didn't have much else. So I thought, let's, try and make this dish that sort of becomes this melting sensation. But it was actually a really, the first time I made it was really good, but then we wanted to sort of get it right. And then by practice, by trying to get it right, it got even more complicated and we realized it was actually quite a scientific recipe. Because the size of the pan is quite important because you need to, your onions need to all fit in the pan with not much space between them.
Yes.
But then when you take the cover off in the oven, then everything shrinks and there needs to be enough space for the sauce to evaporate. I'm probably making it sound like the recipe is very complicated. No, it's actually very easy.
It's actually very easy to make. It's just about getting that gravy kind of flavor, texture from the reduction of the water and the steam and the butter, so it kind of emulsifies, which is what makes it so good. You want to show them the store?
Yeah. So what I've done since we've been talking is I've added. Well, I probably can't show you.
Hold it up. Maybe Yotam, you hold it.
There we go.
I'm a bit taller.
There we go. So we've added tomato paste, which gives it sort of depth of flavor and sweetness and richness, and then we've added sesame seeds. Oh,
okay.
And then we've added more oil, and then we're just going to let it sit for about 12 minutes-ish on about a medium heat, and just let it sort of bubble away. If it starts to bubble too violently, then we just want to turn it down. But yeah, by this point, your kitchen should be smelling really well, and you're ready to pimp up, as you say, just the simplest dishes. Your everyday cooked steamed rice or plain noodles are going to be so much more delicious with this on them. And
it's also very nice with over poached eggs.
Yes,
any egg.
Over poached eggs on top of soup.
Yeah.
Even on a salad would be really nice.
Yeah, totally.
on a pasta, it just everything makes it really wonderful.
And
how will it keep in the fridge once it's?
Yeah.
I don't. Does it need to go in the fridge?
And it doesn't need to go in the fridge. If you're keeping it for weeks and weeks, maybe it would be an idea to go in the fridge. But you can probably you can leave it out for about 2 weeks. I think I guarantee with one batch you'll probably finish it within a week or two.
Yeah, it's a kind of a habit when you get with chili oils or just infusions like that. That once you start adding all that intensity to your food, it does become a habit.
Yeah, I mean, at home I have a shelf which is just chili sauces, chili pastes, chili oils.
Yeah.
There's so many different flavor profiles in chilies.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've talked about chilies too much. There might be some people here that really don't like them.
But maybe we talk about your culinary heritage and how it is for the two of you. You have such different backgrounds. Are you fighting sometimes over a recipe, or how do you work together?
We never fight, and this is not just a happy family situation for the camera. No, it's funny. I've been thinking about it quite a lot because people always ask about these collaborations, And I think one of the, because I tend to do collaborations in my book, with my books, like most of my books are collaborations. And I just find that often after a while, when you kind of almost calibrate your palettes, I think there is actually very little, I think we both know when something is not quite right. We kind of tend to agree on that. I hardly ever feel that something that we taste, one of us would say, oh, that's perfect. And the other one would say, you know, I'm not sure about it, right?
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I mean, Ixta can talk a little bit about her story, about her life and food. But I just want to say that I think that also there is something about growing up without a very kind of one dominant food tradition, which also gives you a certain freedom to play with your ingredients and mix them up. And we are quite similar like that, because we, and so many people in this test kitchen are like that. They're not kind of product of one food tradition. They're kind of, we are kind of a bit of mongrels of food traditions. We do these things, and Ixta mixes up things, and sometimes I think to myself, well, that actually worked, but actually she proves me wrong every time, because she normally gets it right.
Yeah, I think when we talk about flavor combinations, and perhaps with flavors that people think aren't going to work together, I always say you need to sort of think and break it down into the flavors that you're actually talking about. So rather than thinking, oh, this is from Italy and this is from China, so they're not going to work together, you think about the actual ingredient and what properties it has. So is it, you know, is it sweet? Is it savory? Is it fatty? And then what ingredients does it need to balance it? So then, for example, we have a dish in the book called fusion caponata, which is sort of what happened in our head when a caponata, which is a Sicilian dish made with aubergines, met mapo tofu, which is a Sichuan dish with silken tofu and lots of different chilies. And, you know, people might think that doesn't work. But what we were really doing is just balancing the savory notes and the sweet notes in the aubergine caponato with the spiciness and the sort of the, not creaminess, but the texture or property and flavor of silken tofu. And when you think about it like that, things make much more sense.
So would you say that is the secret of great flavors, of good taste, and of a successful recipe?
I mean, I think the secret is balance and layers. And actually, this book is all about creating layers. So the onion that we have on the front isn't just an onion. It also represents lots of different layers. And that's what Yotam has been doing in his cooking forever. But, you know, I think we explain it a little bit more here. But it's about layers of flavor. It's about layers of texture. Often it's also about layers of color. But yeah, I think layers is a very important, is the best way to create exciting food.
Yeah,
I have to agree. And often, when we talk about in this book about flavor, people often think, okay, what do I do if I want to balance sweetness with acidity? And they have this idea that they would add as maybe citrus juice or vinegar to something, and that's obviously true that that's done, but we try to show that that's kind of not always enough. That really good, interesting, delicious culinary experiences are actually about much more than that. So if you have one source of acidity and you add another sort of acidity, it almost like echoes, and you can create another sort of, so often we would add like something like tamarind and lime juice or lemon juice, and maybe yogurt and maybe a tomato. So the acidity comes from different sources. So it's like the difference between one instrument and an orchestra. I mean, you might have, a few instruments playing the same thing, but actually it just becomes something much richer and more interesting.
Yeah, that was a real eye-opener to me when I read that in your book. That acidity from different sources makes it like a symphony, and it makes it very subtle and very interesting.
And the same applies for the members of the pepper family. Mild chilies, hot chilies, dry chilies, fresh chilies. These things come together in a way. That's why this oil is interesting, because it's got all those layers. It's not that it's not good to have one chili. Of course, it's good, but if you want to get an excellent chili oil, you take a few chilies, and you kind of you just get more for your taste buds.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You're known for your spices, Yotam, and there is this Romanian poet who is also a chef, a home cook, and he said in an article that I read the other day, poetry is not just written; it's a combination, also a combination of spices can be poetry, and that made me think of the way you cook. And with Ixta and all the other influences in your test kitchen, it got just so much richer, and that's all in the book. So all the varieties of the different influences that you all bring to create great flavor.
Thank you. I think that's right, and in a way, one of the great examples for that is something that I think, like for instance, like I haven't done a lot of cooking with Mexican ingredients, and Ixta's got spent time in her childhood in Mexico, and her part of her family used to live in Mexico, and when I look at things that go on in Mexican cuisine, which is, as I said, I'm less familiar with, and kind of compare it to what goes on in Middle Eastern cooking or North African cooking, it's amazing how this metaphor for music works, because you really often see similar ingredients and similar techniques, but just something about it just gives it it makes it of a particular culture as opposed to of the other culture. Mm-hmm. And we often find all these, like we just realized, like when Ixta was doing her red onions in hibiscus, that it's really like so similar to sumac onions. Mm. You know, you take red onions and you had another source of acidity, and that like cuts the onion flavor and makes it like a great condiment in so many ways. And in the Middle East we use sumac, and in maybe Mexican cooking you'd use hibiscus. You know, so it's a wonderful thing when you see it in action, how interesting it is.
Yeah, yeah. It's also, I mean, you have a talent to combine various culinary traditions. And I think why people, especially Germans, love your Jerusalem book so much. It's because you bridge gaps and yeah, just it's a way of peacemaking, isn't it? To combine various food cultures and bring people together around the table. And
yeah,
it should be important now in these times.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was incredible to see in the lockdown is how cooking has become this kind of international language. People were baking sourdough on their screens, or showing it on their screens from all over the world, and it's incredible how unifying that can be. Or it's got the potential of being quite unifying. Yeah. If you think about it, and it is a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. So we had a few questions there from other people. Let me see. Somebody asked, what is your favorite food? Is there something, a favorite food or favorite ingredient?
First.
My favorite foods are, I would have to say, tacos and lasagna for me.
Okay. So Mexico and Italy.
Yes. And I also enjoy mixing those two together as well.
Right?
Yeah. Do I need to answer that question? I find it very difficult to answer. I'll take Ixta's taco and lasagna. I mean, it's so hard to choose, but I guess something that comes out of the Middle Eastern repertoire is I can eat anything with, predictably, with aubergine. And I would especially like smoky aubergine with tahini drizzled on top. For me, that is just, one of the best things in the world. And you can call it by various names depending on whether you're in Palestine or Lebanon. But those kind of baba ganoush style salads, I find I could have endless of. And in this book, we've got a soup that's got that burnt aubergine in the soup. A herb soup with lots of green herbs that just gives you that kind of smokiness into it, and it's a wonderful way to bring smoky flavor into the soup.
Yeah, you're also talking about cauliflower in flavor. and all the various versions that you can make with it. It's an, I mean, an incredible spectrum that you can create with a cauliflower. Who would have thought?
I know, because this is the one thing, again, that we talk about quite a lot when we talk about the book, is that often you take a very familiar and humble ingredient, like a cauliflower or a potato or a pumpkin, and you can create people don't expect that you can do interesting things with it, because it just feels so familiar to them. And we love the challenge of taking a vegetable like a swede or a turnip or some Asian green, and just showing people that actually you can just you can inject it with so many flavors, so much flavor, such depth.
Yeah.
That's one of the greatest challenges, isn't it?
Is there anything you don't like at all?
Not really. No, I don't have that issue. No,
I mean, the only thing I don't love is tripe, but people don't force feed me tripe very often, so I don't. It's not really an issue.
And somebody asked, do you know German food, and is there anything you like?
Yeah, well, I know a little bit of German food because I grew up in half a German household. So I like, if I have to choose a German food that I love, it would be something from the dumpling family, from the Knödel family, which I've had quite a bit growing up when we were traveling. And I think we had some together, didn't we, Monika,
Yes,
3 years ago?
Yeah, we were in Munich.
In Munich, which is what you should be eating, I guess, there.
Yeah.
And but I'm also quite happy with the whole range of German dishes from the pork department, but I'm not going to talk about that because it might upset a few of my relatives.
Yeah.
I want to show you the oil, so I'm going to just, as we speak, I'm just going to pour it into a jug so you can just see the color.
It's got such an intense smell now.
Yeah.
It fills the whole kitchen.
So
and you don't have to cough anymore, Ixta, because now
it's gone. It's totally gone.
I don't know if you can see how.
Yeah.
I mean, it will get deeper and deeper with time.
It's
beautiful. But you just get that wonderful color, and all that has got amazing flavor.
Beautiful. Yeah. So how often does it happen that you try a recipe and then you have to throw it away because it just didn't work?
Well, I mean, we never throw recipes away here. Well,
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
No, Ixta is right. We don't throw recipes, but Ixta is such a perfectionist that often she says, don't even try that. That's horrible. And then when I go and try it, I go like, yeah, that's horrible in your world, but every normal person in our own kitchen would be very happy to eat that. So that does happen on occasion.
No, that's true. But I think we all have that here because all of us that work in the test kitchen have quite high standards because we're cooking all day, every day. But I think in the 4.5 years that I've worked here, we've never totally scrapped a recipe. You know, it might not work in the way you first envisaged it, but we'll always use some part of the recipe, maybe the sauce or the oil or some element of it will always become something else. So I don't think we ever completely abandoned a recipe.
Yeah. Some recipes are very stubborn though. So we have this problem with things that just don't want to happen, even though we really want them to happen. And that becomes often a challenge. Like I tried once this tahini cake that we were working on for such a long time here. I think it was like 12 or 14 recipes that until it finally came together. And then I think your world record was this apricot pistachio tart you did years ago.
Yeah. I think I tested that about 15 times before I went crazy.
Yeah. So I realized that you put in a lot of work and also a long time to invent the recipes for one book. How long did you work on Flavour, on the recipes that are in Flavour?
I mean, we were working on it for about 1.5, 2 years, but the recipes, some of them are older than that as well. So really it's been a work in progress for a long time. But it takes a really long time to make a book. Sometimes people see a recipe. I remember when before the book was released, people saw recipes on my Instagram and said, "Oh, is that going to be in Flavour?" And I was like, "Well, no." It's definitely not. It's coming out in a few weeks. It takes a long time because there's so many different things. You know, just making the recipes is one part of it, and then you've got to design it, and then but we have incredible people to design it. You've got to edit it. There's just so much that happens and goes into making a book, so it's a long process. And
you know what, like, we're very pedantic about the recipe testing process. So there's everything that happens around the recipe, but there's also so many that the recipe itself takes a long time. So once we have said goodbye to it, I think I told you, Monica, in the past, there's another recipe tester which tests the recipe at home and feeds it to her children and to her extended family around her, and then she sends her own report about how it went for her and what the reaction was. So in a way, we are always it always takes quite a while to get the recipe quite right, and we're quite proud of how meticulous we are in recipe testing and how thorough it is, because it's really important that they work and etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this is part of their success. It's that they are so unusual that with each new book from you, we learn a complete new world of flavors and methods. And in particular with this book, I have to say, it really is a step onward. And I'm very happy and proud to be your publisher and to be able to send this into the German cookery world and to people who are food lovers. And I'm sure it will be under so many Christmas trees this year. It's just a perfect gift. And I know what's involved also in the food photography. You make the dishes look so beautiful.
Yeah, we actually really, I think both Ixta and I really enjoy the process of photography. I mean, it's something that I love. I love it. I think it's so important to translate your dish into a visual message. You know, it just does it. It's such a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
And it really, the pictures really tells you a lot. I think we often underestimate how much you learn from a picture when you look at it in terms of like, what is it that I'm cooking? How is it working?
Yeah, and here you explain on some pages how this. This is one of my favorites here. These aubergine rolls.
Yeah, they're cooked in coconut dal and stuffed with paneer and hot mango pickle. This is a great recipe for a vegan or because you can use tofu as well instead of the dal for a vegan main course. And even actually the dal itself is just good even without the aubergines if you want.
I know.
It's not quite as hard.
I've made this so many times. It was pre-published in The Guardian, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And I read it when I was in a holiday home with friends, and they are vegetarians. So I thought, hey, I'm gonna try this on them, and I've made it, I think, 6-7 times since. It's really fantastic. Yeah, it's so satisfying. It's one of the most satisfying recipes I know.
Yeah.
The food photography, is that in your test kitchen or in a studio?
No, we shoot it here in the test kitchen. Normally we take about 2 or 3 weeks to shoot the recipes here, and it's a big operation.
Yeah, it really is.
Because all these recipes are prepared as they should. So you know, we even season them. So it's not just about what they look. They need to be quite right. And,
Yeah, there's another one with mushrooms that I love.
Oh, that's the hummus with the mushroom. Yeah. And the mushrooms they have. I don't know if we mentioned, but there's a whole chapter about mushrooms that is a really great chapter, because especially for vegetarians and vegans, it's just there's so much potential there in terms of getting that flavor that often you need to work harder to get in vegetables than you would do if you ate meat. And one of the recipes that everybody should cook once they get the book is Ixta's mushroom lasagna, which is, for me, I think, one of the best lasagnas ever. And it's become very popular since the book has come out. Many people have cooked this lasagna.
Yeah.
It involves getting a lot of mushrooms, but they all cook down into this really concentrated, wonderful flavor.
Yeah, and there is also a mushroom powder that you add, also a secret power.
We use dried mushrooms.
Yeah.
Dried porcini mushrooms, which really have a wonderful sort of flavor of the forest and very deeply umami.
Yes, absolutely. Are you both vegetarians? I know, Yotam, you're not totally.
No,
neither of us. Neither of us. We're both very much omnivores. We just love vegetables. So I mean, this isn't a book for vegetarians. It's a book for everyone. It's a book for anyone who loves vegetables, because we love vegetables, and we eat probably more vegetables than anything else. But this book is for everyone that loves vegetables.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I mean, there were so many comments. I was trying to follow, but it was impossible because so many people writing. Well, thanks to all of you. It's fantastic how engaged everybody is, and they all love this book, and they love your other books, and just love the style that you created in the kitchen.
I know, it's amazing to see all the notes.
From Argentina and Poland, and I mean, from somebody asked when your book will be published in Poland. Do you happen to know?
I don't know. I know it will be published, but I'm not quite sure when.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. I mean, it would be good that everyone can use it, all the food lovers in the world. Yeah, well, I think we've now almost 45 minutes, and if we count the first unofficial part, it's nearly an hour that we've been chatting.
Thank you,
I'd love to invite you to Germany whenever it's next possible, and look forward to seeing you again, be in one room with you, have a meal together, have a glass of wine together. And until then, I wish you all the very best. We'll keep you updated on the success of Flavour.
Thank you very much, and thank you for Monika for doing such a great job with the translation and getting it out there to the German public. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy that we can all share this love of food, of your food, and yeah, until next time. Thanks for making this hour and for talking to us, and all the best.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.